Blessings everyone, it's time for another special astrology transit video, and in this video we are talking all about Chiron retrograde. And Chiron actually just went retrograde today, the 15th of July, and it's going to remain retrograde in Aries through the 19th of December. And Chiron retrograde is an interesting one to open up because when Chiron goes retrograde, there's actually this opportunity to do a lot of clearing and make a lot of progress when it comes to releasing what Chiron direct brings up. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. We're going to be going over, the energy of Chiron retrograde in Aries, of course, and then breaking down what the big themes of this year, what makes this year a bit unique, and what is going to be the name of the game for everybody. Now, if you are not used to my all-in-one style of reading, remember to open the down bar below, and you will see what areas of life are getting the primary focus for each sign. So if you want to check your rising sign, your sun sign, all of that, absolutely fantastic. I do make these videos with the intention that they are referred to later on down the road. So it will help you come back to the foundation of this experience. Even if you're going to come back and watch it a week from now, a month from now, in September, it doesn't matter. It's meant to stay more evergreen in that sense. So make sure that, if you feel like there is something going on with Chiron retrograde with you, or any of these experiences seem to come up down the road and you're feeling a bit lost or whatever, you can always come back and check and see, okay, what is one of the big names of the game for the second half of 2021. On that topic, I do also recommend, if you are watching this in July, you go and check out the Neptune retrograde and Jupiter retrograde videos I also put out, because Jupiter, for instance, is actually retrograding back into Aquarius quite shortly, and so might want to do a bit of a refresher there. And Jupiter and Neptune both went retrograde back in June, so if you have not seen them, they're also big game-changing energies for the next few months. And so, get up to speed with that might be a good idea. And don't forget to check out the bonus tarot videos that I also put out for those retrogrades, giving you an understanding of the themes or the plots of the stories of those retrogrades. If you are interested in more astrology and tarot and spiritual talk content from me on a weekly basis, you might want to check out my Patreon. You can follow the links in the down bar below. And for $5 minimum pledge per month, you'll have access to weekly tarot, weekly build your own spread tarot, as well as my lives on Tuesdays and weekly bonus astrology. And again, you can just follow the links in the down bar below for that. And if you ever want to get a session with me, you can go to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com. So what is Chiron retrograde in Aries all about? Well, Chiron, the energy of Chiron is what a lot of people might refer to as the wounded healer. The focus on what our wounds, our lessons, the things that we are here to clear and repair our relationships with are by showing us the pain, or showing us the wound, showing us the baggage or the old density that needs to actually be released in order for success, in order for having the best quality of life for what area of our chart Chiron is transiting through, in this case, Aries. When Chiron is retrograde, it's actually a beautiful time because it is a time of purging and eliminating the wounded healer experience, right? Because wounded healer is not necessarily something to aspire to be or to stay. Being a wounded healer or being in a wounded healer experience is a sign that there is something that needs to be processed, purged, and eliminated so that we can have the best quality of life possible. And so when we go through a Chiron retrograde, you can even say, okay, this is a time we were shown where the wounded healer experiences or where the wounds that need to be healed are with Chiron direct. Chiron retrograde, it's all about the release and removal of the wounded healer identity or the wounded healer experience that's going on there. The key words for Chiron retrograde in Aries actually support this very well. And we're using re-words because re-words are a big part of any kind of retrograde, and we are seeing reparation or repair, redirection, revamping, and even a bit of recovery during this time. And Aries being the sign that is the pioneer, the go-getter, the initiator, right? The hard worker, the groundbreaker. This is the time where we are able to see what about any kind of old wounds, old teachings, old programming, or anything that we may over-identify with, because Aries is also the sign that talks about the natural seat of identity, what we might want to pay close attention to as something that we identify with that we don't want to anymore if we're actually going to grow, evolve, prosper, and feel that sense of love and fulfillment we all want to have. When we talk about 2021, because this is also occurring with that Neptune retrograde in Pisces and, Jupiter retrograding back into Aquarius, the flavor, especially July, August, September, and October, is focusing on solutions through reorienting one's path or re-engaging things that ultimately need to be troubleshooted and cleared so that we don't keep recreating, empowering, energizing, or working with the wrong experience. We are healing the relationship we have with this area of our chart. Chiron retrograde is going to show you, where we need to remove the struggle there and where we can actually confront challenges that maybe have felt a bit more intimidating or too difficult to take on before. Because Chiron retrograde does allow us to go through the clearing experience, but instead of going at it with swords, axes, and morning stars, we're going at it with Nerf bats. And so it's a little bit less of a threatening experience to finally take certain risks or to actually face maybe challenges that one was fortifying or avoiding before. We see solutions and transitions from new and old challenges because we are actually seeing what works, right? So whatever area is going, what works for the family, what works for a healthy relationship with the family or with romance or with relationships, what works with that focus on abundance, on prosperity, on career, on your education, healing your relationship with that subject. Now, you might not know if something needs to be healed there. Chiron retrograde is going to be like, look, if you've been missing it or it's not something that's been apparent to you, well, you're also going to be shown where you might be working with tools or with understandings that are not going to actually help you achieve your goals, but we are going to see what works instead. We're also getting answers to pervasive obstacles and the origins of pervasive obstacles, lessons, and problematic conditions in this area of your chart, right? That revelation, thanks to a bit of that Neptune retrograde in Pisces, also allowing us to not only see why something is the way it is, but what built it in the first place, where it actually has its origin. So we can both, pull it apart in the present, but also back engineer to actually release the cause and core of that from our psyche, from our environment, from our experience, from our relationships. This is also a time where we want to be receptive because this Chiron retrograde, at the same time as we have Jupiter retrograde, is also helping us to gain the tools, the teachings and connections that we have been working without that we surely need. Now, these could be things known to us or things that are unknown to us that are getting revealed to be integrated, right? The things that we have gone through life without actually acquiring or learning. Chiron retrograde can be a really big eye-opener, especially when it comes to realizing where all of the better ways to go about our life, go about our work, go about our efforts actually are, even if it's showing up as complete news to us, which ultimately allows us to then take a step in the direction of transcendence. Transcendence of short-term, mid-term, and long-term difficulties that have maybe been sort of an aspect of this area of your life that you've kind of taken for granted. Something that ultimately does not belong anymore. We're seeing the release of that, and allowing all willing and working hearts to be able to ditch that aspect of the wounded healer experience, not only in ourselves, but the processes of this area of your chart. And so we want to make sure that we're not overly attached to things the way they have been or assumptions we may have had in the past. Chiron Retrograde is all about evolution. Chiron Retrograde is all about permanent healing, permanent fixes, and real cures, and the elimination of false truths, escapism, projections, deflections, so that we can actually confront this area in an open, loving, and productive way, which is a nice change, right? Because sometimes with Chiron direct in a certain area, we have a tendency to attract that which resonates with what is going wrong with that part of our chart that needs fixing, but we might not have the context. But if we're to receive the tools, the teachings, and the connections that we need to actually climb up, right? To start building on a brand new platform, this is where Chiron is really going to work for us. And there are a couple of key points throughout this Chiron retrograde process where you're going to notice that wounded healer experience getting eliminated collectively and individually. And again, it's not with any judgment. It's just that healing, that clearing, that buffing, and that lifting experience is going to work. And we're seeing a lot of this in early August. We're seeing a lot of this in late September and pretty much all of November. But there is this release for the revamp, the redirect, the recover, and the repair work to have the best relationship with this part of your chart possible. And if you've not even engaged this part of your chart, right, it's been a long time, pay attention, because this is also going to resurrect aspects of this area of your life so that you can incorporate them so that they can actually start to have a positive ripple effect on other areas of your life. You just want to make sure you leave room for it. So that is what I've got for you all. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because you know I appreciate it. And should you ever wish to get a session with me, all you need to do is go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.